Volume 1 dropped. While everyone binged it in one sitting, I spent hours going frame by frame through all 4 episodes, and what I found is gonna blow your mind. You're about to hear about details that completely change everything you thought you understood about the show. The very first scene of Season 5 finally shows us what really happened to Will in the Upside Down Library back in 1983. And if you were watching at normal speed, you probably missed how important every detail in that sequence actually is. The demogorgon brings Will to its nest under Vecna's control. Then Vecna says something super specific, at long last, like he's been waiting for this exact moment, planning it. But here's what most people didn't notice. When the camera pans down, you can see this gross yellowish egg sac thing connected to the tendril that goes into Will's mouth. If you slow it down, you can actually see multiple separate materials moving inside that tendril. Those aren't mind flayer particles. Those look like multiple slugs or organic materials being pumped into Will's body. This egg sac design was actually pulled from unused Season 2 concepts. Back when they were developing Season 2, the production team researched amphibian egg sacs as inspiration for expanding the Upside Down's mythology. Chris Trujillo even talked about it in interviews. They looked into really weird stuff but couldn't figure out how to use it back then. Now in Season 5 they finally brought it back. The color of the egg sac even matches one of the unused designs from Season 2. So the brothers have been planning this specific visual for years, they just waited until the final season to actually show it. That's not random. That tells us this flaying process and what happened to Will in that library is the foundation for everything happening this season. When you slow down that opening scene, you can see lightning flashing in the Upside Down. Red lightning, specifically. And this is actually a detail that was supposed to be in Season 1, but got cut. In the original Montauk pilot script and early Season 1 scripts, there were supposed to be lightning storms happening when supernatural events occurred. Fun fact, in those original scripts, the lightning was supposed to be blue, not red. They changed it somewhere along the way. But the point is, the writers have wanted lightning storms in the Upside Down since the very beginning. They finally got to include it 9 years later in the opening of Season 5. Why does this matter? Because it shows how much of Will's story was always meant to be connected to larger mythology. The lightning, the flaying, the library, all of it was planned way back when they first conceived the show. Vecna's connection to it might be retroactive, but the core elements were always there. The radio station where Steve works as Robin's board operator isn't just a random set. If you pause and look closely at the design, at the vintage equipment, at the layout, you'll realize it's based on a real place. WSQK is modeled after WPTF radio station in Raleigh, North Carolina. That's not far from Durham, where the directors grew up. There's even a 1950s style photo of the radio station on the wall. The whole underground shelter design, the setup, everything is pulled from this real radio station that the directors clearly loved as kids. Jimmy Fasthands, Lee, was WSQK's previous voice before he left town. You can see his name on posters in the background. The radio station has been Hawkins' local station for decades based on the vintage branding everywhere. This isn't just set dressing. This is the writers recreating something from their own childhood and planting it in Hawkins as the group's main base of operations. The art department even said this was their favorite set to design. They put so much detail into making it feel authentic to 1987 while also having that underground bunker vibe that fits the tone of this season. If you watch at quarter speed, you can catch all the little vintage radio equipment details that make it feel lived in. Here's something genuinely disturbing that the show doesn't explicitly state but becomes really obvious when you slow things down. The tunnels beneath Hawkins that our characters use to move around safely, those aren't just tunnels, they're the carcass of a gigantic dead organism. Back in Season 2, we learned the tunnel system was essentially one massive living creature connected to the hive mind. When 11 closed the gate at the end of that season, every organism connected to the hive mind in the real world died instantly, including the tunnel system itself, which means our characters are literally crawling through the rotting corpse of a creature that spans beneath the entire town. If you watch the tunnel scenes at slow speed, you can see how organic everything looked. The walls aren't rock, they're flesh, dead tissue that's been sitting there, decaying since 1984. You can see the texture, the way light hits it, the remnants of veins and biological structures. It's genuinely gross once you realize what you're actually looking at. The show uses these tunnels as shortcuts to reach WSQK, the junkyard where 11 trains, Hopper's cabin, even downtown through the Radio Shack entrance. Our characters have been navigating through this dead creature for months. That's metal as hell and also really disturbing when you think about it too long. They've ever built the military access control zone, Max Zee, is the downtown area where all the rifts collided. The military set up a permanent base there with their own entry point into the Upside Down, and if you slow down the establishing shots of Max Zee, you can really appreciate how insanely massive this set is. The production team has said this is the biggest set they've ever built for Stranger Things. Bigger than the Russian facility in Season 3. Bigger than the Silo Lab in Season 4. This thing is enormous. There are metal structures covering the rifts like giant band-aids. There are military vehicles everywhere. Cameras monitoring every corner. Soldiers patrolling constantly. At quarter speed, you can catch all the background details. The way civilians are being processed through checkpoints, the military police chasing kids who were sliding on the metal metal rift covers, the sonic weapons mounted on Humvees, the helicopters coming and going. There's so much happening in the background of these scenes that you miss at normal speed. And then there's the vertical extension of the mega rift that goes down into the library. That's the military's main access point into the Upside Down. When you slow it down during the scenes where they're burning through to send vehicles in, you can see how the rift glows and pulses. It's not just a hole, it's alive, breathing. Okay, so the military didn't just set up a base in downtown Hawkins, they also built an entire facility in the Upside Down itself, Gable Ridge Road Base. And when you watch the Upside Down scenes at quarter speed, you realize how much effort went into making this feel real and terrifying. There are white barracks set up, helicopters flying in that toxic red atmosphere, soldiers in hazmat suits conducting research. It looks like something out of Aliens, but more grounded, more military-industrial complex. The art department really outdid themselves, making this feel like an actual forward operating base in a hostile dimension. In the research facility, there's this new tentacled creature being kept in a glass container. At normal speed, it's easy to miss, but when you slow it down, you can see it moving, writhing. It looks similar to the vines, but behaves differently, more aggressive, more alive. There's also fungus-like growths in smaller containers and what looks like living tissue being dissected on Dr. K's lab table. According to behind-the-scenes info, there's supposed to be a black egg somewhere in this lab too. Time magazine mentioned it in their set visit article. I haven't spotted it yet in volume 1, but I'm guessing it shows up in later episodes. The point is, the military is actively studying upside down biology and trying to understand it, probably trying to weaponize it knowing the military. Linda Hamilton plays Dr. K, and if you pay attention to her uniform and how other people interact with her, you realize she's not just some scientist, she's a 2-star major general. That's higher ranked than anyone we've seen in the government side of Stranger Things before, higher than Brenner, higher than Owens, higher than Sullivan, even though Sullivan is technically part of her unit now. When you slow down the scenes with her and Sullivan, you can catch all these little power dynamic moments. Sullivan taking orders from her dismissing his failed leads with sarcasm, the way she commands rooms. She's ruthless, but in a cold, professional way that's different from Brenner's creepy father figure energy. The director said they specifically wanted Kay to be different from Brenner. Brenner was interested in science, understanding, exploring. Kay is only interested in military applications. She sees 11 as a weapon, nothing more. She doesn't have emotional attachment like Brenner did, which makes her way more dangerous in a lot of ways. Ross even joked that, unlike Brenner or Owens, Kay can actually kick ass in combat. She can shoot. She's a badass. You can see it in how she carries herself. Linda Hamilton brought that Terminator energy, and it shows. When she's on screen, you believe she could absolutely handle herself in a firefight. The Wolfpack is this special forces unit hunting for 11. They're led by Lieutenant Robert Akers, and they answer to Sullivan, who answers to Dr. K. At normal speed, they just look like soldiers. But when you slow down their scenes, you notice they're way more tactical and professional than regular army. Amy Paris, one of the producers, even called them a sort of mercenary regime. They're not standard military. They're specialists. The kind of people you send when regular soldiers won't cut it. And they have these sonic weapons called hedgehogs that are specifically designed to incapacitate psychic individuals. Project Indigo numbers, basically. You can see these hedgehog weapons mounted on Humvees, installed in helicopters, even inside the Gable Ridge base. They emit some kind of frequency that disrupts psychic abilities. At quarter speed during the scene where they're chasing that random burnout in the woods, you can see the hedgehog activating, the way the air distorts around it. The sound design gets all warped. Sullivan is still wearing his CID insignia, which is consistent with what we knew about his position in season 4, but now he's taking orders from Kay and working as part of the Wolfpack. You can tell he's not happy about it. When you slow down his facial expressions in scenes with Kay, you catch little moments of frustration. He's used to being in charge. Now he's not. Mr. Whatsit is Vecna's psychic manifestation when he appears to Holly and the other targeted kids. He looks like a friendly version of Henry Creel wearing this brown suit with a top hat. At normal speed, he just looks generically friendly, but the costume design actually has layered meaning that you only catch when you really study it. According to Amy Paris from the costume department, Mr. Whatsit's outfit is intentionally a mix of Dr. Brenner and Mr. Rogers. The warm, approachable vibes of Mr. Rogers combined with the authority figure energy of Brenner, and the brown color, specifically. That's Henry subconsciously basing the suit on the warm brown colors that Brenner used to wear back in 1979 during Henry's time as an orderly at Hawkins' lab. So even in his fake friendly disguise, Henry is pulling from his memories of the one father figure he ever had, Brenner, the man who experimented on him, but also gave him some twisted form of care. It's psychologically revealing. When you slow down Mr. Whatsit's scenes and really look at the costume, you realize Vecna is still just a traumatized person trying to connect with kids using the only reference points he has. The top hat is also significant. It makes him look whimsical and magical, like a character from a children's story, which is exactly what Holly and the other kids perceive him as, a magical friend who's protecting them from monsters. They have no idea the monster is the one pretending to be their friend. In episode 2, when the demogorgon breaks through into Holly's bedroom, if you pause and look at the room layout, you'll notice something. The brass bed frame, the way the furniture furniture is arranged, the overall aesthetic. It's a direct homage to Carol Ann Freeling's room from Poltergeist, that 1982 horror movie about a little girl getting taken by ghosts through her TV. And now in Stranger Things, we have a little girl getting taken by a monster through a dimensional rift in her ceiling. The parallel is intentional, the directors love Poltergeist and have referenced it before, but this is the most explicit visual callback yet. At quarter speed, you can really appreciate how the demogorgon breaks through. The way reality tears open, the glowing red energy, the creature reaching down with those petal-faced jaws opening. It's terrifying but also beautifully shot. The VFX team outdid themselves, making it look both otherworldly and visceral at the same time. There's also a poster on Holly's wall for An American Tail, that Steven Spielberg animated movie about a mouse immigrating to America. It's another late 80s reference, but it might also be thematic. The movie is about a child getting separated from their family and trying to find their way home, just like what happens to Holly. Episode 2 is called The Vanishing of Holly Wheeler, which is obviously a direct callback to the very first episode of the entire series. The Vanishing of Will Byers. This isn't subtle, but what you might not realize is how deliberately this season is structured to mirror season 1. A child gets taken by a demogorgon, the family is devastated, the group has to navigate military occupation while searching for the missing kid. There's a supernatural threat that echoes the original mystery. The Duffers have said they wanted season 5 to feel like it's coming full circle, and that starts with literally recreating the kidnapping plotline but on a bigger scale. In the Montauk pilot and original show concepts, there was supposed to be an escalating number of vanishings, multiple kids getting taken, the entire town becoming haunted. They scaled it back for season 1 to focus on just Will. But now in season 5, they're finally doing the version they originally imagined. 12 kids getting taken, Hawkins genuinely under siege. The full-scale version of the nightmare. When Will has his first vision of seeing through the demogorgon's eyes in the woods, most people assume that was the first time it happened. But if you pay attention to his behavior earlier in the episode, you realize he's been feeling something for a while already. His neck tingle. That's been his warning sign since season 2. But this season, it's different. It's not just sensing the Upside Down's presence, he's actually briefly connecting to the hive mind, seeing flashes, feeling what Vecna feels when he's inside Holly's mind during the manipulation. At quarter speed during the scene where Will grabs his neck in the tunnels, watch his eyes, there's a split second where they flutter. Like he's seeing something. It's super brief, but it's there. He's getting glimpses through the hive mind without fully understanding what's happening yet. This proximity-based connection makes sense when you think about it. The closer Will is to Upside Down activity, the stronger his unwilling tap into the hive mind becomes. And since the Upside Down has literally invaded Hawkins through all these rifts, Will is basically always near enough to potentially connect. He just hasn't learned to control it yet. During the crawl, when Will fully taps into the hive mind and sees through the demogorgon's eyes, the visual effect is genuinely disturbing at quarter speed. His eyes go completely white, not just cloudy, pure white. And the way his face goes slack like his consciousness isn't in his body anymore. It looks like possession. Then we cut to what he's seeing. The demogorgon's point of view, the distorted vision, the way it hunts, the soldiers scrambling. And Will is experiencing all of this while physically standing in the tunnels. His body is in one place, but his mind is somewhere else, entirely riding along in a monster's head. When you slow down these sequences, you can really feel how violated Will must feel. This isn't something he's choosing to do. It's happening to him. The hive mind is forcing its way into his consciousness whenever it's close enough. That's horrifying. He thought he was free after season 2 when they burned the mind flayer out of him, but he was never actually free. The connection was always there, waiting. When the demogorgon breaks through into the Wheeler house to kidnap Holly, if you slow down that sequence frame by frame, you can see how they've evolved the effect since season 1. Back then, the demogorgon could travel between dimensions, but the effect was more subtle. Now with the glowing rifts and enhanced VFX, you can see exactly how it worked. The demogorgon doesn't just appear, it tears through reality. The air distorts, red energy crackles. There's this moment where you can see both dimensions at once, the Upside Down and the real world overlapping. Then the creature fully emerges and reality seals back up behind it. This has always been the demogorgon's ability. They're interdimensional sharks that can breach between worlds whenever they want, as long as there's a permanent rift somewhere nearby. The season 1 demogorgon had the mother gate at Hawkins' lab. These season 5 demogorgons have the mega rift downtown. They're not creating new portals, they're using existing ones as anchor points to jump between dimensions. At quarter speed, you can track the creature's movement. It emerges from the ceiling portal, fights Ted and Karin, who are genuinely trying their best against an actual monster, grabs Holly, then jumps back through, taking her with it. The whole sequence is maybe 30 seconds, but slowed down, you can appreciate every beat of the choreography and effects work. Here's something easy to miss. Dr. K mentions they're doing a heavy supply drop at Gable Ridge base, and this supply drop is happening earlier than usual. They need a serious injection of resources for some reason. The same night this happens, Vecna goes back into full action for the first time in a while. That's not a coincidence. Vecna waited until the military was conducting a major operation to start kidnapping kids and attacking personnel. When you slow down the timeline of events, you realize Vecna has been watching, planning. He knows shows when they're vulnerable, when their forces are divided between securing the supply drop and maintaining regular patrols. This shows Vecna isn't just a supernatural threat, he's strategic. He's been observing the military's patterns for months, learning their routines, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And the heavy supply drop happening too early suggests the military has been having more problems than they expected. Maybe Vecna has been testing their defenses, probing for weaknesses. This is probably the biggest Easter egg most people completely miss. When Max is showing Holly around Vecna's memory prison, they see a high school memory from 1959. There's a school play being put on. Joyce Byers is handing out pamphlets for this play. She went to high school with Henry Creel, so did Hopper, so did Karen and Ted Wheeler, so did Bob Newby, so did Steve's dad, whose name we learn is Danny Harrington. They all knew Henry. This was established in the Stranger Things first Shadow stage play, but now it's confirmed in the show itself. When you slow down that memory sequence, you can spot familiar faces in the background, young versions of characters we know. The Duffers are confirming that Hawkins has always been a small, interconnected community. Everyone knows everyone, and Henry Creel's evil has been lurking in this town's history the whole time. The play itself, The Righteous Angel, is significant too. Henry would have been acting in it right before or right after the murders of his family. In episode 1, when we first see Eleven, she's wearing a very specific outfit: bandana, sweatshirt with cut-off sleeves, gym shorts worn over sweatpants. If you're a Goonies fan, you immediately recognize this. It's exactly what Josh Brolin's character Brand wears in that movie. The Goonies is one of the most iconic 80s adventure movies, a group of kids going on a dangerous treasure hunt to save their town, and here's Eleven, dressed like one of them while literally going on dangerous missions into the Upside Down to save Hawkins. The parallel is perfect. At quarter speed during Eleven's training montage in the junkyard, you can really see how her style has evolved. She's not the scared bald girl in a hospital gown anymore. She's confident, comfortable in her own skin, wearing clothes that reflect her personality. And the Goonies reference adds that sense of adventure and scrappy determination that defines her character. Speaking of that training montage, the way it's shot is very obviously inspired by superhero training sequences, specifically X-Men. The junkyard where Eleven practices is essentially her personal danger room. She's working through obstacles, levitating cars, crushing metal, pushing her limits, but there's also a Star Wars Rise of Skywalker vibe to it. Rey training on that desert planet, moving rocks, doing acrobatic flips, building her connection to the Force. Eleven is doing the same thing with her telekinesis. The cinematography even mirrors some of Rey's training shots: low angles, dramatic lighting, emphasis on focus and determination. When you slow down these sequences, you can see how much stronger Eleven has gotten. In earlier seasons, she could barely flip a van without passing out. Now, she's casually juggling multiple cars at once. 18 months of constant training has made her incredibly powerful, maybe powerful enough to finally match Vecna. In episode 4, when Will is about to unlock his powers for the first time, he closes his eyes and thinks about happy memories. The first time Mike asked if they could be friends, drawing with crayons and showing his art to Joyce, building castle buyers with Jonathan. If these memories sound familiar, it's because they are. These are the exact same memories that Joyce, Jonathan, and Mike used in season 2 when trying to reach Will while he was possessed by the Mind Flayer. They talked about these specific moments to try bringing him back, and now in season 5, Will is using those same memories to fuel his powers, to give himself strength. It's a full circle moment. The memories that once saved him from possession are now empowering him to fight back. When you slow down this sequence and really pay attention to Will's face, you can see the emotion, the joy in those memories, the love. That's what gives him access to the hive mind. Not anger like Eleven, not hatred like Vecna, love. Here's a theory that's been circulating, and honestly it makes too much sense. Eleven is number 11, Kali is number 8, Vecna was number 1. If you add those together, you get 20. In Dungeons & Dragons, rolling a natural 20 is a critical success, the best possible outcome. The show has always used D&D as a framework for understanding the supernatural element, and now we have these 3 specific psychics whose numbers add up to 20. 11 with telekinesis, Kali with illusions, Vecna with mind control and hive mind access. If they worked together, combined their abilities, they'd be unstoppable. Kali appeared briefly in Volume 1 to remind viewers she exists. She's being held prisoner at Gable Ridge base. 11 and Hopper found her, which means she's going to be freed and she's going to join the final battle. The D20 theory suggests that these 3 psychics reuniting is going to be crucial to defeating the Mind Flayer and closing the Upside Down permanently. When you rewatch with this theory in mind, certain shots take on new meaning. Whenever 11 uses her powers, the camera lingers on her face. When we see Kaylee in that cell, she's positioned in the center of the frame. When Vecna appears, the framing is symmetrical. It's like the Duffers are visually connecting these 3 characters across the narrative. When Will is comforting Holly early in the season, he tells her a story about Holly the Heroic. In this story, Holly is a cleric, the same D&D class as Will the Wise. This isn't throwaway dialogue. This is the show telling us that Holly is going to play a crucial role in the supernatural fight. Clerics in D&D have healing powers, divine magic, and the ability to turn undead creatures. They're support characters who help their party survive impossible odds. And Holly is literally trapped in Vecna's mind prison right now, learning about his weaknesses from Max. She's gathering intelligence, building knowledge, preparing. When you slow down the scene where Will tells the story, watch his face. He's not just making something up to make his sister feel better. He believes it. He sees something special in Holly. Holly also has this moment in Vecna's memory prison where she says, Mr. Whatsit can't enter the cave, the place where young Henry first encountered the Mind Flayer. That memory is too traumatic for Vecna to face, so he physically can't manifest there, which means it's the one safe place in the entire mindscape. And Holly recognized that. She's smart, observant, exactly the kind of traits a cleric needs. If you're familiar with Marvel Comics, you might have noticed some familiar story beats. In 1989, there was a major X-Men event called Inferno. One of the main plots involved demons from Limbo kidnapping 13 children to use their souls to open a permanent gateway from Limbo to Earth. Stranger Things, Season 5 has Vecna kidnapping 12 children for reasons that aren't fully explained yet, but if they're following the Inferno template, and all the evidence suggests they are, Vecna is planning to use these kids to stabilize the gates between Hawkins and the Upside Down, probably through their death, sacrificing 12 innocent children to complete his invasion. The number is even similar, 13 in the comics, 12 in the show, close enough to be a clear homage. And Stranger Things has always drawn heavily from X-Men mythology. We've seen X-Men comics in Season 1. The whole concept of kids with powers being experimented on by the government is very X-Men coded, so using Inferno as a template for the final season makes perfect sense. When you rewatch with this knowledge, the urgency becomes clearer. The group isn't just trying to rescue kids, they're trying to prevent a mass sacrifice that would permanently merge dimensions. That's apocalyptic stakes, world-ending consequences if they fail. When Holly names Vecna's mindscape Kamazotz, she's pulling from a Wrinkle in Time. In that book, Kamazotz is a dark planet under control of an evil entity called IT. It's a prison planet where everyone is forced to conform. Individuality is destroyed, free will is crushed. Holly using this name isn't random, it's thematically appropriate. Vecna's mindscape is a prison made of his memories. The kids trapped there are being forced to see a false version of reality. They're losing their sense of self, becoming vessels for Vecna's power. It's exactly what Kamazotz represents, but there might be more to it. A Wrinkle in Time deals with traveling through dimensions and fighting evil that exists across multiple planes of reality. The heroes in that story have to literally journey to other worlds to save someone they love, just like what the Hawkins group is doing, traveling between the Upside Down and reality to rescue the missing kids. When you slow down the scene where Holly explains Kamazotz to Max, you can see how much she's processed. She's not just a scared kid, she's trying to understand, trying to make sense of the impossible situation she's in. Using stories and references, she knows to create a framework. That's intelligence, that's survival instinct. Here's a theory that's been around for a while, but Season 5 gives it new weight. What if the demogorgon that took Will in Season 1 wasn't actually a demogorgon? What if it was Vecna himself in a different form? The opening scene of Season 5 shows Vecna personally appearing to Will in the library, not sending a creature, showing up himself, which raises the question, if Vecna cared enough about Will to personally flay him in the library, why would he trust a demogorgon to do the kidnapping? Demogorgons are mindless killing machines. They don't take prisoners, they kill and eat. But the Season 1, Demogorgon specifically grabbed Will and brought him to the library alive and unharmed. That's not normal Demogorgon behavior. At quarter speed, if you go back and rewatch Season 1 scenes with the Demogorgon, it behaves way more intelligently than the Demogorgons we see in later seasons. It uses strategy, it unlocks doors, it seems to be thinking rather than just hunting. That's not how hive mind creatures typically act unless they're being directly controlled by the consciousness at the top. Vecna could have possessed a Demogorgon to do the kidnapping, or he could have shapeshifted. We don't know the full extent of his abilities, but either way, the Season 1. Demogorgon's unusual behavior makes way more sense if Vecna was the one actually piloting it, making sure Will got to the library safely for the flaying process. In Episode 4, Will takes control of 3 Demogorgons simultaneously and kills them using bone-breaking telekinesis. That's his first time consciously using the hive mind. And he's already that powerful. The Duffer Brothers have said we'll see how far Will can take it as the season continues, which suggests his abilities are going to grow significantly in Volume 2 and Volume 3. What else is connected to the hive mind? Demobats, Demodog, vines, mind flayer particles, the atmosphere of the Upside Down, maybe even Vecna himself since he's technically part of the network. If Will learns to expand his reach, he could potentially take control of the entire dimension. When you slow down the scene where Will's eyes go white and he raises his arms, you can see the strain on his face. This isn't easy for him. It's taking effort, concentration, but he's doing it. A kid who's never used powers before is matching what Vecna does. That's insane potential. And he's only going to get better with practice. The question is whether Will can control his abilities without losing himself. The hive mind is evil. It's corrupting. The longer Will stays connected to it, the more danger there is of Vecna using that connection to possess him again. So there's a ticking clock element. Will needs to master these powers fast before they master him. Okay, so this is a reach, but hear me out. There's a fan theory that Robin might be connected to the Mind Flayer. The evidence? When the group was helping kids escape from the military base, one kid asked if they were part of Mr. Whatsit. Robin responded by calling herself one of the elves. Why would she say elves specifically? That's a weird choice unless it means something. And throughout Volume 1, Robin is the one who keeps giving Will advice about accepting himself. She's the one who tells him the answers are inside him. She's weirdly invested in Will's development, almost like she knows something about his connection to the hive mind. At quarter speed, if you watch Robin's facial expressions during supernatural moments, there's something slightly off. Like she's aware of more than she should be. She's too calm when weird stuff happens, too knowledgeable skeptical about things she shouldn't know. It could just be good acting showing a character who's become desensitized to the supernatural, or it could be a hint that Robin is not entirely what she seems. I'm not saying Robin is evil, but she might be connected to the Mind Flayer in some way we don't understand yet. Maybe she got infected in season 3 and nobody noticed. Maybe she's been working as an unwilling spy this whole time. Or maybe the theory is completely wrong and fans are reading too much into a throwaway line about elves, but it's fun to consider. This is more of a fun marketing detail than a plot point, but it's worth mentioning. There's a missing persons poster for 11 shown in the first episode. She's listed as Jane Hopper, and there's a phone number you can actually call in real life. If you call it, you get a pre-recorded message from the Hawkins Police Department. The message says Hawkins is under lockdown due to the earthquake. They're working to locate missing persons, and Jane Hopper is a priority. They urge citizens to help find her. It's a neat interactive element. The Duffers love doing this kind of stuff, making the show feel more real by creating things that exist outside the screen. When you pause on the poster at quarter speed, you can read all the details. The description, the last known location, the reward information, it's all fully filled out like a real missed purse case. That level of attention to detail is why Stranger Things feels so immersive. They don't do anything halfway. This is a blink and you miss it moment. When Joyce is handing out pamphlets for the Righteous Angel play in that flashback, she calls out to someone named Harrington. That's Steve's dad, Danny Harrington. He actually appears on screen for the first time ever, played by actor Aiden Armstrong according to his Instagram. For 5 seasons, people have joked about Steve's parents being absent. We've heard about them. We know they exist, but we've never seen them until now. And it's in a brief high school flashback from 1959, which means Steve's dad was also a student at Hawkins High with Joyce, Hopper, Henry, and everyone else. When you slow it down, you can see his face for like 2 seconds, but it's there. The Duffers finally gave fans what they wanted, sort of. We still don't know anything about what Steve's parents are like in the present day, but at least we confirmed they existed and went to school in Hawkins. Murray working as Bradley's big buy delivery guy is probably one of the smartest parts of the whole operation. He can enter and leave town freely because he's delivering supplies. He has a legitimate reason to be cross checkpoints, and he can gather intelligence about what the military needs based on supply orders. It's from Murray that the group learns about supply drops and military movements. He's their eyes and ears for what's happening at the government level, and nobody suspects an old delivery driver. He's hiding in plain sight. When you slow down his scenes, you can catch all the little details. The way he notes information, the coded messages he passes, the careful observation of military personnel. This is classic Murray. He's always been the conspiracy theorist turned actual spy. And now he's using those skills to support the group's resistance operation. He might not have powers or military training, but he's resourceful, clever, and absolutely crucial to their success. Volume 1 ends with major pieces moving into position. Will has discovered his powers. The 12 kids have all been taken. Dr. K has captured Calais. The military is ramping up operations in the Upside Down. Vecna is executing his mass plan. Everything is building toward a massive confrontation. When you rewatch all 4 episodes back to back at quarter speed, you can see how deliberately the Duffers are setting up dominoes. Every scene serves a purpose. Every character moment matters. Every detail contributes to the larger story. Nothing is wasted. It's really impressive storytelling. Volume 2 drops on Christmas Day. Volume 3 drops New Year's Eve. We're getting 8 more episodes in the next month, and based on what Volume 1 established, those episodes are going to be absolutely insane. The war for Hawkins is about to go into full swing, and all the setup we've been watching is about to pay off in a huge way. Watching Stranger Things at quarter speed reveals how much thought went into every single frame. The Easter eggs referencing 80s movies and comics, the foreshadowing of future plot points, the character development happening in subtle facial expressions, the world building details and background set dressing, none of it is accidental. The Duffer Brothers have been planning this ending since they started the show, and you can feel that intentionality in how everything connects. The opening scene with Will in the library ties directly to the season 1 pilot. The 12 kids being taken echoes the original Montauk concept. The X-Men Inferno references set up the stakes. The D20 theory connects all the psychic characters. It's all deliberate. If you only watched at normal speed, you got the main story. But if you slow it down, you get layers, depth, connections between seemingly unrelated elements, clues about what's coming next, and a much deeper appreciation for the craft involved in making this show. So yeah, I spent way too much time watching 4 episodes of television at quarter speed, but it was worth it, because now I'm seeing things nobody else talking about. And when Volume 2 drops, I'll be ready to catch every single detail all over again. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more Stranger Things character analysis, story deep dives, and theories.